I am an old school game master. And when it comes to my attitude about negative outcomes, the punishments, what you will go through, I don't care about tedious punishments that piss you off as a person, let alone the idea that it upsets your character. And you can tell me you don't like that, you don't want to play in a game like that, you don't want to play my game because of that. Okay. But if you do play my game, you will learn really quickly how to play the game well. Why? Because I'll make you go through things that you would rather never go through again. For example, going into a dungeon in my D&D game, I find to be completely different than how dungeons are represented in D&D. My dungeons are so immersed because I don't let dice rolling, get in the way of actually playing. Like going through your character, looking around, seeing things, knocking on the wall with the character instead of rolling a dice, and we assume you do that. You don't do that because I'm old school. So my dungeons can be very tedious and very immersed, but very intense because of the way I run it. I mean, I'll have my players tell me they love the game, but they're scared of going into a dungeon in my game because it's so intense that it drains them. I mean, it literally drains them mentally. Like they just want to get out of there. They don't want to be inside of the dungeon because it can be that intense. Like when you first go in, you think, okay, I'm at a dungeon in a Dungeons and Dragons game. This should, be fun. Most of my dungeons are not meant to be fun at all. They're meant to be worrisome, scary. Who knows what's around the corner, the mystery. Well, I like it to be intense, and I like you to have to interact with everything and go through the whole thing to the point where you feel the tediousness in what your character has to go through, because I don't let you roll dice and go through. So that tedious searching around, I let you feel that just a bit. And you could tell me you don't like that. You rather roll the dice. You rather do all that. Like, so you might not want to join my game, or you might not want to join a game that does that. Okay. I mean, look, I worry more about the just actual playing. Like, it doesn't matter where you're going or where you came from. We're in the session, just have fun with it. Even if you are going through a grind, which you do in my game, it doesn't mean you have to focus on the grind. Just focus on playing the character and enjoying that moment. But a lot of people get caught up in my game because it's very grindy. And it can feel that way. And I'm not lying to you. I think players should try to overlook that, but at the same time, I am purposely forcing it to a degree, and not forcing it in a way that they have to feel it, but I'm going to push it. So I'm going to push it towards them, that tedious, hey, I'm going to make you go through crap. But if you stop focusing on what I'm making you go through in that way, it's better, and you have way more fun. But I'm old school in the sense that I'll let you, say you're failing picking the lock or failing doing this, to a degree. If I think it's realistic enough and it's okay, I'll push some level of convenience in there and let things move a little faster. But at the same time, I'll let you fall on your face. I'll let that be an issue. I'll make you have to go through several times of doing things, waiting periods of time. Yeah, man, I ride you hard. I mean, does it sound like something a game master is doing, or am I talking about a fucking porno? You get what I'm saying. And what really is the grind? It just means you're not going to bypass a lot of stuff conveniently. You're going to have to face it. You're going to have to, hear the details about the room and tell me how you're going to look in the room. And there's going to be no perception check. There's going to be none of these overkill convenient checks that allow you to bypass all this stuff. I want to mentally challenge you. I want you to pay attention to the details. I want that to be a thing. And it's okay if you fail. It's okay if you don't catch something. It's okay if you miss something. But at the same time, I tell players, don't be afraid to ask questions. But you will not be bypassing this with a fucking perception check. And that's what it is to be old school, really. Like, it's that tedious grind to the game. And it's meant to be that way. It's like when you play a PC game, it's not there to appease you at every turn. It is there to challenge you, and that can be very frustrating. Do people forget that these games do the same, and you're not actually a bad game master if you create a negative experience with the game? You're meant to experience something negative if you fail. You're meant to experience the negative of the grind and challenge. because there are negatives in the game. They should be there. That's what a good game master would apply to the game. A bad game master is one who just bypasses all that stuff, or allows you as a player to bypass all that stuff. And look, my way has a history of developing great players. I developed a lot of great players from nothing to something, from crap to something, from just mind warped from playing with really terrible people to me fixing that and improving them. Because they play this way, it challenges their mind, it pushes them to a corner. They don't have perception checks, they don't have easy outs mentally. So they're constantly forced to think, interact, go through the things. And I always guarantee players, it will improve them. And every player that comes out of my game that spends enough time is an improved player. Every game master that's ever gotten a player from one of my games, after players actually come in and play, like say maybe at least 20 sessions, they're like, wow, man, like this guy's really good. Or they met that guy when he was terrible, and they can't believe the different player that they're encountering in their game. Even with their game having a perception check, they realize, man, your player's so confident that they just start calling out what they want to do, even if I'm telling them to go ahead and roll a perception check. Like, they're way ahead of it, and they're very confident. I'm like, yeah, because I pushed them to a corner, and what people find out is they can handle it, but if they never get pushed to the corner, and they always have the easy out, they won't know they can do the thing. And I would tell a player, you want to learn that you can do the thing, because it's going to build your fucking confidence up. Like, unbelievably build it up. Because you find out you can do the thing that maybe you were intimidated by or thought you couldn't do. But if you don't have a game master that pushes you to do that stuff, well, what are you left with? Convenience. And what do we know about human beings in real life? The more convenient something is, the lazier we become. And in a mind game that is meant to challenge your mind, being mentally lazy is a terrible experience. But I guess if you got your ass covered with a perception check, well, then you're rolling the dice. Go ahead and do that. But to me, it starts going to a video game format, and it starts running away from the unique side of what a tabletop role-playing game is and what you can do with it compared to, say, the invisible walls of a PC game. And what happens to game masters that can always bypass having to go through that stuff with their players, and they just take the role and they give a response to it. Here's the outcome. You found the thing or you didn't find the thing. And I think that's part of the reason you don't see a lot of dedicated, I've not seen really dedicated game masters come out of the WotC editions of D&D. In my opinion, there's something lost from the entire experience that we had. Now, it doesn't mean there weren't some people that didn't, do similar things before WotC started doing all this. But they were a minority, and players complained about those game masters. Now, those game masters are the majority, and they're not dedicated, and they burn out, and you got to keep bringing new ones into the system to keep up, but you can't. That's why you get the majority of people in the hobby today, especially that play WotC games, or want to play WotC games, unable to play because there's simply not enough people out there to run for all the players that are, in that part of the hobby. And on top of that, they're picky players in a field where they don't have enough game masters to cover everyone. And there's an expectation that you cater to the things that cause them to be mentally lazy in a mind game that's meant to challenge you, where being mentally lazy is the last thing you want to be. But if you start making a game that's tailored to that mental laziness, it's no longer a mind game, in my opinion. And the connection to intelligence or nerds or whatever, it starts slipping away, and it goes to the more normal crowd, because you're getting away from what made it a very intelligent mind game, and you're putting it to dice rolls and making it easier for people that don't want to think at all to play these games. I just want players to know, as they're going to encounter me and consider playing the game with me, that this is how I am, right? This is how I am. I'm a strict, old school game master. I try my best to give you the best experience I can, but I'm strict in all these areas, right? It's how I am. And I have a reason for it. I really do have a reason for it. It's like another reason I don't let players explain the outcome of things like their attacks in the fight. Because I have a different view on this. I think that you train your players to get used to you as a game master giving description. right? There's a little bit of what players do, but your players are trained. They're used to hearing you and imagining what you're saying. When I find players stepping into that, it's a flashover. It's forgotten. There's little impact, and a lot of players are not good at doing it. I like to put the details in there because I add something in there to make it even more of a reason you want me to control that. Because any detail I put in there as a player, you can take advantage of. But at the same time, you, the person who did the action, and all the other players will imagine what I'm saying a lot easier and better than it would be if it were coming from a player. And the player's going to be limited because they can't just cheat and say something happened and they have an advantage. So if they're going to get some, just random advantage from their action, I might say, oh, you cut the goblin's head off. And blood spills to the ground. And what happens is there's a couple of goblins around that one. Now they're going to have to roll dexterity checks or something like that to see if they can stay standing because they're slipping in the blood. And I tell any player, I am the game master. When I say something, it's real. So if there is an advantage that you could see, a common sense one, forget a game rule of advantage. We've always been doing disadvantage and advantage. It's just they have a name for it now, like they specifically call it that. But we've always been doing that stuff. But it's not that. It's just a slightly different. Either way, when you see an advantage, like where you could take it, an opportunity, I tell players, jump in on the opportunity. Don't worry about what it says in the book about what you can or can't do. I'm the authority figure here. If I say something is happening and your common sense says, why can't you do this? Guess what? You can try to do anything in the game. So ask me about it. Hey, I know it doesn't go by the rules. It doesn't seem to be structured. I don't know if I get an extra action here or should or whatever, but what's going on with this guy and why can't I do this? I'm a player's game master. I'm on your team on that reasoning. So come at me. I want to award that kind of thinking, especially if you have an idea that lines up with an opportunity you're seeing. So now you know more about me as a game master for tabletop role-playing games. Anyway, for now, take care.